In 1991, a new roller coaster manufacturer burst onto the scene. This was GCI, or Custom Coasters International. They built 34 coasters across the globe, all of them moored, and all of them were pretty high quality. One of their earliest coasters is Outlaw at Adventureland in Iowa. It opened in 1993 and was designed by a man named Mike Boodley, who had worked at the company since its inception. However, in 1994, he left to form a different manufacturer with a co-worker named Claire Hain Jr. and some other employees. They formed a company known as Great Coasters International, or GCI, that wouldn't build any roller coasters until 1996, when they built Wildcat for Hershey Park. This was their first roller coaster, standing at 106 feet tall and dropping down 85 feet and reaching a top speed of 50 miles per hour. What was unique about this ride was the curved first drop, which swooped you down to the right, as opposed to going straight down like wooden roller coasters usually do, and the mix of airtime hills and turns, plus the helices. So this coaster basically defined what all GCIs would be like for the early 90s, and when it opened, it was pretty popular, although it did get pretty bad, but we will talk about that later. For now, all you need to know is that Wildcat was a wildly successful first coaster for GCI, and other parks started to take notice. GCI followed Wildcat up with Roar, built for Six Flags America in Bowie, Maryland in 1998. Then, in 1999, they built and opened an exact clone of Roar, which is also called Roar, at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom in Vallejo, California. And these two roller coasters stand 94 feet tall with an 85-foot drop and have identical layouts. They were both very similar to Wildcat. However, also in 1999, GCI was about to do something different that had only been done by a few manufacturers before them. That year also marked the opening of Gwazi at Busch Gardens, Tampa in Florida. Now, what made this coaster unique from other GCIs is that they actually built two separate coasters and made them dual, so it was considered one ride but with two tracks. There was the lion side and the tiger side. Both sides stood 105 feet with a 91-foot first drop, and both reached speeds of 51 miles per hour. And the dueling was very big and very popular with guests. However, unfortunately, the Florida weather was not kind to Gwazi, to the point it got unbearably rough, and in 2012, the tiger side was shut down, so only the lion side was operational. And we will once again talk about what happened with the lion side later. In 2000, Hershey Park got another dueling coaster, Lightning Racer. This time, the two tracks are called Lightning and Thunder. This ride has a height of 91 feet and a first drop of 90 feet. And it was built in the back of the park near Wildcat So now Hershey Park had two coasters of the same manufacturer basically right next to each other, which was a little weird. There are some differences between this ride and Gwazi besides the height though. Like here on Lightning Racer, the first stop is curved, whereas on Gwazi it's straight. Also, Gwazi focused much more on dueling, where you crossed over and under the other track, while here it focuses both on racing and dueling. So when you're not crossing over or under the other track, you're right next to it, which adds another level of thrill to this ride, because it feels like you can high-five the riders on the next train. And although it feels that way, you shouldn't do that, because that's a safety hazard. But anyway, yeah, Lightning Racer is a very fun ride, and is a great GCI. It was a great way to ring in the new millennium for them. In 2003, they opened Ozark Wildcat. This had a height of 80 feet, a drop of 73 feet, and a top speed of 45 miles per hour, so it was definitely the smallest coaster they have ever done, almost family friendly. And it opened at Celebration City in Branson, Missouri, which is very close to Silver Dollar City. Unfortunately, you cannot ride this ride anymore as it got demolished along with the park in 2008. 2004 saw the addition of Thunderhead at Dollywood. This roller coaster was 100 feet tall with a 100-foot drop and a top speed of 53 miles per hour. And originally it was nestled at the very back of the park before Wildwood Grove came along and became the back of the park. And this was also part of an area called Thunderhead Gap, which later expanded to include other rides and attractions, and currently Thunderhead gets some of the longest lines at the park. When I went there in 2023, this was consistently a 75-minute wait. Although one time it did drop to 25 minutes, and then when I went to get on it then, it had bumped all the way back up to 75. So that shows you just how popular this ride is. In fact, it's considered one of the best GCI designs. In 2006, the company debuted its first international coaster, Thunderbird, at Power Park in Finland. This roller coaster stands 82 feet tall and has an 82-foot drop with top speeds of up to 48 miles per hour. This ride would be cloned yet again, and the clone would be placed in the United States, but we'll get to that in a little bit. For now, all you need to know is that Thunderbird, for the time being, was a unique layout and was a great addition to Finland, since pretty much all the coasters before then were steel with only really old wooden coasters and no modern ones up until this point. Meanwhile, in the United States, Kentucky Rumbler also opened in 2006. This is located at Beach Bend in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and it has a top height of 96 feet, a drop of 80 feet, and a top speed of 47 miles per hour. When this opened, it put Beach Bend on the map. You see, before this, Beach Bend had been abandoned and forgotten about until a businessman bought a racetrack near it and unknowingly also bought the amusement park. So he decided to contract GCI to build a roller coaster there in hopes that it would draw guests in. And the park reopened for the 2006 season with this as their headliner. So of course people flocked to it, and it's still drawing in crowds today, with many people doing southern road trips making a pit stop at Beach Bend just for this ride. 2007 saw the opening of two rides that are widely considered to be GCI's best, or among GCI's best. One of these is Renegade at Valley Fair in Minnesota. This has a height of 97 feet, a drop of 91 feet, and a speed of around 48 miles per hour. Despite these middle-of-the-pack stats, it's considered one of the best rides in the park and consistently draws a long line. This is also due to it being the last coaster Valley Fair has received in a long time. Please, Six Flags, I'm begging you, get anything new for Valley Fair. It could be a family coaster new, but we're not going to talk about that right now. For what it is, Renegade is a very solid wooden roller coaster and a great addition to this park, since their other wooden roller coaster has been around since the 70s, and they desperately needed a modern woody, just like the country of Finland. The other ride that opened that year was Troy at Toverland in the Netherlands, and the second international coaster from this company. This ride has a height of 105 feet, a drop of 100 feet, and a top speed of 54 miles per hour. Now, I've never ridden this ride, but from what I've heard, it's one of the most popular in the park, and it's one of the best rides there, especially on a hot day. I've also heard it gets consistently long lines, but the operations are horrible. Like, based on what I've seen, it's also consistent one-train operations. So, if you want to ride this, which I hope to one day, you better be prepared to wait a long time. In 2008, Six Flags St. Louis in Eureka, Missouri, opened a clone of Thunderbird at Power Park. This is called American Thunder, and it was located in the front of Six Flags, where it was originally named Evel Knievel, before getting a rename in the early 2010s. So since this was an exact clone of Thunderbird, it has the exact same length and stats. 82-foot height, 80-foot curved drop, around 51 miles an hour. And actually, this was my first GCI, and I absolutely love this ride to death. Possibly in my top 10. I really want to ride this again next time I'm in the St. Louis area, and I'm planning on doing a road trip at some point just so I can get back here. American Thunder was followed up in 2009 with El Toro, not to be confused with one of the best wooden roller coasters currently in existence in New Jersey. This is a small coaster at a park in Germany with a top height of 80 feet, a drop of 70 feet, and a top speed of 45 miles per hour. This could be considered the company's first true family coaster, as it was fun for riders of all ages, which was perfect for this park, as the only coasters they installed prior to this one were kiddie coasters. GCI would returned to Missouri in 2009 for Prowler at Worlds of Fun in Kansas City. This roller coaster stood 102 feet tall, an 85-foot drop, and reached speeds of 51 miles per hour. And when it opened, it won a Golden Ticket Award. That's how good it was. And Cedar Fair loved the layout and loved the fact that it won an award. So, naturally, they came up with a near identical clone of it and contracted GCI to build it at another one of their parks. But once again, that's a ride we'll get to a bit later. And to round out 2009, Six Flags Magic Mountain welcomed Apocalypse, formerly known as Terminator Salvation, the ride. This stands 95 feet tall, has an 87-foot first drop, and reaches top speeds of 50 miles per hour. So, all in all, a pretty good middle ground coaster, which is what GCI is known for. And it's a great fit for the park, since Magic Mountain has a lot of thrill coasters, and the coaster that this replaced, Cyclone, was more extreme than it, so the park was missing a good middle ground coaster, and with the opening of Apocalypse, they finally have one. The only problem is it's located in the back of the park, so crowds don't really flock to it, which is a shame because it is a very solid ride. 2010 heralded the arrival of a family racing coaster, Joris in de Draak, at Efteling in the Netherlands. These two coasters in one, similar to Gwazi and Lightning Racer, both had heights of 72 feet and drops of 72 feet. And unlike other racing coasters that the company had built, like the ones I've mentioned before, as I said, this is a family coaster, meaning younger children could ride it without being too frightened, which was great for Efteling since they were a family park, so they want to offer something for everyone regardless of thrill level, and I feel GCI definitely delivered on it. However, their offering for 2011 would be a lot less family friendly. That year marked the company's first Asian coaster, Wood Coaster, aka Mountain Flyer, at Night Valley in China, and this thing is a beast. It's one of the tallest coasters the company has ever done, standing head and shoulders above the rest at 147 feet, topped only by one other coaster we'll talk about later, although it's dubious if that coaster even is that tall. And because of its height, it's also one of the fastest coasters from this company, clocking in at an absolutely insane 61 miles per hour. It's just a shame that it's in China and SBNO, because this looks like one of the greatest wooden coasters to ever exist, and I really want to ride it. I just wish that the company would build a coaster of this magnitude somewhere in North America or Europe so that it would be more accessible to more enthusiasts, because honestly I feel like this could be a contender for a lot of Golden Ticket Awards. Speaking of beasts of coasters, GCI whipped up Woden for Europa Park in Rust, Germany in 2012. This was placed in the Iceland section, where it towers over every ride there in that section, standing at an impressive 130 feet, making it the third tallest coaster in the company's history, and clocking in at 62 miles per hour, making it tied with one other ride for fastest coaster in the company's history. This is pretty similar to Wood Coaster at Night Valley, only if it had 1,000 feet less track to about, which doesn't mean it's any less impressive. In fact, it may be the most visually impressive coaster in the park, with its massive wooden supports and the way it weaves through blue fire. It's honestly a marvel of engineering how the construction workers and designers here managed to fit so much ride into such a compact space, and they deserve their flowers for it. In 2013, GCI decided to turn their intensity down a notch and debuted their first true family coaster, White Lightning, at Fun Spot America in Orlando, Florida. This ride only went up to about 69 feet at a 67-foot drop, hit speeds of 44 miles per hour, and was rather compact, but still, it packed in a whole lot of ride for the space it was given and managed to be quite a bit of fun for riders. It also received some upgrades that we'll talk about towards the end of this video, so now it's smooth like butter and should continue to run well for years to come. On the opposite coast that same year, California's Green America in Santa Clara, California, added Gold Striker, a more conventional GCI thrill coaster with a top height of 108 feet and a top speed of 53 miles per hour. Just like Fun Spot, they managed to see this into a narrow, difficult plot, this time wrapping around the observation tower and racing next to the Pictorium. They also added a tunnel over the first drop to reduce sound so that neighbors to the park, since the park is in a heavily populated area right next to the 49ers stadium, wouldn't complain. And this ride would be right in Carousel Plaza, similar to Max Force at their sister park, Six Flags Great America. And despite its narrow plot of land and the constraints they had to work in, it is, once again, a very solid ride, and I'm sad it might not have much time left here. Remember how I said Wodan tied with one other coaster for the title of fastest coaster by this company? Yeah, that coaster opened in 2016, and it was in a park called Nanchang Sunak Land in Nanchang, China. It used to be known as Viper, and the park used to be known as the Cultural Tourism City. Now, this coaster, the height is not quite known, as the previously given number may have been using the terrain to its advantage, but what is known is that this is the longest coaster GCI has ever built, with a track length of 5,111 feet. 2017 was a big year for GCI with 5 ride installations, 3 of which were international. The first one being Jerome's Wooden Dragon, formerly known as Jungle Dragon, with an unknown height and a drop of 99 feet, so one of the smaller coasters of its type in China, but still very impressively long with a track length of nearly 4,000 feet and a top speed of 55 miles per hour. And it was located at Happy Valley in Chongqing. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, so feel free to correct me. And it offered some great views of the city from the top of its lift hill before dropping down a straight drop that started out curved. It then goes into a layout of airtime hills and high banked turns using the terrain to its advantage every step of the way, which is very impressive considering how well it works with the hillsides. There's airtime hills going up along the slopes of the hills and down. It's really nice and honestly quite relaxing to watch, which you wouldn't usually say about a roller coaster, but I feel that way about this one. Meanwhile, Plopsaland in Belgium got Heidi the Ride, a family coaster with a height of 72 feet, a 67-foot drop, 44 miles per hour as its top speed, and about 2,000 feet of track. It was based on Heidi, a character created by the TV studio Studio 100, which is also the company that owned Plopsaland. And this was the biggest ride at the park before Ride to Happiness opened. An ocean away in the US, 2017 heralded the arrival of Busch Gardens Williamsburg's first wooden roller coaster, Invader. This was another family coaster, standing 60 feet tall, but with a 74-foot drop thanks to the ravine. And what's unique about this ride is that it was one of the only rides GCI had built that uses steel supports as opposed to wood. The other one was the White Lightning in Florida. And the reason they did this was because Busch Gardens had requested it since Squazzy, the other Woody at the other Busch Gardens park in Florida, had a problem with its wooden supports rotting in the heat, and Busch Gardens Williamsburg wanted to remedy that, and with the steel supports, they did. There have been no problems with Invader and rot, so yeah, steel definitely works. But Invader wasn't the only wooden roller coaster to open in the United States that year, as Kings Island in Mason, Ohio, opened Mystic Timbers, basically their version of Prowler at Worlds of Fun. And this stands 109 feet tall, has a 98-foot drop, and it reaches speeds of 53 miles per hour, and has 16 airtime moments. But the main feature everyone talks about on this ride, the shed, which is basically an enclosed brake run with a screen and some music, which was a disappointment when this ride originally opened, but now people have gotten used to it. And Mystic Timbers consistently ranks as one of the best rides at Kings Island and is a very good contender for the Golden Ticket Awards each year, frequently ranking close to the top 20. Rounding out 2017 is another Chinese roller coaster, Great Desert Rally at Happy Valley in Chengdu. This is a 100-foot tall coaster with a top speed of 57 miles per hour, and an absolutely ginormous wooden structure that it weaves itself through. And it's most notable for its interactions with the nearby B&M dive coaster, which make it eye-popping to look at. This ride, while not particularly tall or fast, is definitely one of GCI's most eye-popping visual spectacles because of its structure and the way it interacts with other rides at the park. 2018 heralded the arrival of the first wooden roller coaster in the UK in over 20 years. This is Wicker Man. It stands 65 feet tall, has a 72-foot drop, and a top speed of 44 miles per hour. And it was advertised as Secret Weapon 8 at Alton Towers in Staffordshire because they were claiming it was the first roller coaster to fuse wood and fire. Now, the reason they claimed this is because in the middle of this ride, which is basically just a family coaster, there is a multi-story Wicker Man with fire effects, which is very cool visually to look at, and riders will go through this Wicker Man figure not once, but twice. And of course, being at Alton Towers, it has a very dark theme, that being human sacrifice. But hey, it's a wooden coaster in the UK, a country with pretty much zero wooden coasters except for this one and Megaphobia at Oakwood, so you know what? I'll take its dark theme. I see this edition as an absolute win. In 2019, Poland got a Heidi the Ride clone themed to werewolves called Wilkola. This is located at a park called Madahaland. I don't speak Polish, so pardon the mispronunciations. Now, since this is a Heidi the Ride clone with the exact same height, speed, and length, but it is a bit spookier since it's themed to werewolves, and the station definitely shows that with a scary face that you exit out of and enter back into, so maybe this ride wouldn't be the best for young children. Probably better for kids who can handle a bit of horror. But other than that, yeah, this is a family-friendly ride. Also in 2019, GCI debuted steel track called Titan Track at an IAPA after party held at Fun Spot. They said that this was weld-free track that could go on top of old wooden track and be used for various refurbishments. It was first tested out on White Lightning at Fun Spot before going on other coasters such as Wolverine Wildcat and Predator, and it provides a pretty smooth ride experience. In February 2020, just weeks before everything hit the fan, SeaWorld San Antonio debuted Texas Stingray, their first wooden roller coaster, replacing the log flume. It stands 96 feet tall with a 100-foot drop, and just like Invader, has a steel support structure to prevent rotting and decay. This ride has a very good location, being right in the center of the park where everyone can see it, and it is also blessed by a sprawling layout and a lot of airtime and really good pacing. So SeaWorld definitely struck gold with this. 2022 saw GCI build what is probably their most remote roller coaster. It's located on an island pretty far from civilization. Say hello to Roaring Timbers, the first and so far only wooden roller coaster in the country of Vietnam. It stands 106 feet tall and goes 49 miles per hour and has some of the craziest banking I've ever seen on any roller coaster's turns. Basically, the entire train turns sideways, and no other GCI up to this point has done that, which makes this a bucket list ride for me, because I really want to experience that, but mostly because I just really want to get to Vietnam. It seems like a nice country, and I want to do a trip there, visiting all their amusement parks, but that's a video for another day. In 2023, GCI revived Zambezi Zinger for Worlds of Fun, which actually marked 3 major milestones for the manufacturer. First, a spiral lift hill, which hadn't been done in quite some time. Second, the first notable use of Titan Track on any coaster that wasn't a retracking. And third, the debut of the Infinity Flyer trains, which were built for compatibility with the Titan Track and could also handle inversions if that's what a park wanted. Zambezi Zinger has a height of 74 feet, a top speed of 45 miles per hour, and was potentially the most terrain-driven layout that GCI has done to this day. It actually fit in the spot of the old Zambezi Zinger, which is very impressive considering how narrow that plot was. They squeezed it in right next to Boomerang, the Vekoma Boomerang. So yeah, overall, very impressive job by GCI. And finally, last year, 2024, GCI built Hala Madrid at Real Madrid World. This roller coaster was formerly known as Bombay Express, was initially completed in 2020, then sat defunct for 4 years. And if you're wondering why there's no POV of this ride, it's because one hasn't been released yet, so we just have off-ride footage to go off of. This ride is 112 feet tall and hits 57 miles per hour, and I'd say it looks pretty fun. Anyway, before we wrap it up, I should do an in memoriam for the fallen GCI. Ozark Wildcat, as I said, closed with its park in 2008 and was demolished shortly after. Lore at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom was closed in 2015 so that RMC could come in and turn it into The Joker, which opened in 2016 and is currently one of the most popular coasters at the park. Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa was closed in 2015 and sat rotting for 5 years before RMC stepped in and transformed it into Iron Gwazi, which opened in 2022 and is considered one of the best coasters on the planet. And finally, Wildcat at Hershey Park, the first GCI ever, closed in 2022 so that RMC could take over and turn it into Wildcat's Revenge, which is personally my favorite of the RMCs, and it opened in 2023. Other than those 4 coasters, though, one gone forever and the other to be redone, all of GCI's coasters are operating still. So, there you have it. A quick look at the evolution of GCI. And if you're wondering why I haven't covered the retracking, since they retracked several other wooden roller coasters, don't worry, I'll get around to those eventually in other installments of this series. Which GCI was your favorite? Let me know in the comments below, and also comment which manufacturer you want to see me cover next. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time in a brand new video.